When's the last time that you found yourself opening up the door to the refrigerator or driving through the drive-through or at the junk food cupboard, or maybe it's the gas station because your emotions were like up to here and you needed that fix of whatever your favorite food is just to be able to manage the emotions that you're feeling? We eat for almost every emotion out there in our culture today. We eat when we feel happy. Think about a wedding. What's the first thing you think about, or a birthday party? Cake, right? We eat when we're happy. We eat when we're sad. We eat when we're angry. We eat when we're stressed. We eat when we're anxious. We are turning to food for just about every emotion that you could come up with. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the healthiest way for us to be dealing with our emotions. Welcome back to Healthy Christian Living with Ruth and Casey. It's just me today, and I wanted to share with you 3 really powerful strategies that you can implement to start ending, or to maybe stop is a better way to say it, to stop emotional eating. Because, as Ruth and I have helped thousands of women on their weight loss journeys, one of the biggest concerns that women have, things that they come to us with, are like, I'm just such an emotional eater and I don't know how to stop. Okay. And really, this is not a simple thing, right? This is a complex issue because many of us are turning to food for all of the things that we should be turning to God for. And as believers, God is our source of comfort, our source of security, our source of safety. He is our provider. He is our healer. He's all of the things that we need. And yet many of us are turning to food instead of turning to God for all of those deep emotions that we feel. Sometimes they're happy emotions too that we don't really even know how to feel. So we just head right to the food. And I can relate to this. I'm sure you can relate to this. In fact, put in the comments below what aspect of emotional eating resonates with you the most. Do you resonate most with eating happy emotions, like you're celebrating with food? Do you resonate most with like the sad emotions where you're like sad and lonely and you're like eating the whole tub of ice cream, or the depressed and like angry emotions? Like, which emotion do you recognize in yourself that you're heading to food to feed your emotions for? So let me know in the comments below. Also, I would just like to ask you, if you are here watching, please subscribe to our channel. Please interact with the content. We'd love to hear your comments. Not hear them, I guess. We'd love to read them. We're real people. We'd like to get to know you in this broader community. And, if you have ideas or topics that you'd like us to cover, please put them in the comments below, because, our goal and our mission is to help transform the lives of Christian women so that we can reclaim our health, that we can reclaim our weight, that we can stop living defeated, and that we can live a happy, healthy life on purpose so that we can use the gifts that God's given us and have confidence in who He's created us to be. So I just want to thank you for being here. So I want to get right into these 3 strategies that will help you stop emotional eating. And the first one is pretty simple, but it's not easy. In fact, they're all simple, but not easy, because what's easy is heading to the food. We all know how to do that. So the first one is that we need to bring our feelings and our emotions to God. The Bible talks about cast all your cares on Him, for He cares for you, right? We got to cast those cares, right? I think about that like fishing, like casting your fishing line. That's like getting it out there, right? That's not like, oh, here it is. That's not a gentle motion. That's like, get it off me, give it to God, because He cares for you. If it's big enough to be on your mind and on your heart, it's big enough to bring to God. So I want to take that a step further. When you have big feelings, whether they're happy feelings, whether they're sad feelings, whether they're lonely, whatever it is that you're dealing with, those big, deep emotions, we often don't even know how to verbalize what we're feeling. And so I want to encourage you, when you're bringing it to God, I would encourage you to even take it one step further and write it down. Okay, you could type it on your computer, you could write it on a piece of paper, but when we learn how to put language to how we're feeling, it can help us process it, because part of the processing is learning to put language to it, because sometimes we don't even know how we're feeling. We don't have the words. And so the more that we can like dig in the dirt and think about what it is that we're feeling, it helps us to process what's actually going on. So I would encourage you to write it down. And then if you don't want to keep it because you don't want somebody to see it, just rip it up. You could burn it. You could just delete it if you've written it on your computer. But putting words and language to how we feel can really help us to process it. And that's a great act to bring it to God with, because it's done with intention, right? You can even write it out as a prayer. So that's the first strategy that I want to share with you, is to cast it all on Him, because He cares for you. Bring it to God. Write it down. That's the first step, I believe, in learning to feel our feelings rather than feed our feelings. And, I just want to share a quick story with you about a long period of time in my life when I was actually feeding my emotions rather than feeling them. And it took me a long time to recognize that that's actually what I was doing. And if you've been around watching for any length of time, you'll know that for years and years and years, I was highly, highly addicted to Diet Coke. So it's not food, but it's something to consume. It's a beverage. And, I was drinking a horrible amount of Diet Coke every single day. It was not healthy. And, I did that for years. And finally, as I got older, and, I would quit. I would go cold turkey and I would quit, but I would always go back. And I could never figure out why, I could quit. But then I would always end up back there. And I always like to go for a drive and pick up a Diet Coke through the drive-through and then go for a little drive, often with friends, or sometimes by myself. And, what I recognized as I got older was that my addiction to Diet Coke, my feeding those feelings that I didn't even know I was having, because I was so used to just pumping those feelings, feeding those feelings with Diet Coke, is that every time that I would find myself getting in my car to go pick up a Diet Coke through the drive-through, I was actually feeling lonely and bored and dissatisfied with my life. And I was using Diet Coke and this excuse to go for a drive, to get out, to go get that Diet Coke, go for a drive, see a different set of walls. I was using that to feed my emotions of boredom and loneliness and dissatisfaction with my life. And when I finally recognized that that's what I was doing, it really clicked with me. And I went, wow, how powerful is that? That Diet Coke has become my source of like enjoyment, my source of like navigating the dissatisfaction that I feel with my life. Because what I recognized is that a lot of the time, I didn't actually even want to drink the Diet Coke. Like I would pay for it and I would get it in my hand and I'd be like, oh, I didn't really even want the Diet Coke. I wanted what it represented in my life. And so I began to surrender that aspect of my life to God. And I began to actually feel how I was feeling, which is my second point for strategies. Like my second strategy for you, it's a powerful one, to stop emotional eating, is to actually feel how you're feeling. Let it out, right? I began to recognize that I was feeling lonely and bored and dissatisfied with my life. And I actually started to let myself feel that instead of covering it up with a trip to the drive-thru for another Diet Coke. This one is challenging because we're not used to actually feeling our feelings. We're used to covering it up. We're used to stuffing it down with food. And so this one, sometimes you're going to have to cry. Sometimes you're going to have to like let out the celebratory emotions. Maybe you're going to like jump up and down and do some jumping jacks. Maybe you're going to like, woohoo, do a happy dance. I don't know, but learning how to actually feel those feelings rather than just going right to the food. It's a process to learn how to do that. And sometimes we're going to have to cry. Sometimes we're going to have to laugh. Sometimes we're going to have to go out and exercise to like process what we are feeling. But learning how to actually feel your feelings requires that you're willing to be vulnerable, even with yourself. And sometimes it's the hardest, I think, to be vulnerable with ourselves because we're trying to convince ourselves that, those feelings aren't really there. We're trying to cover them up. And so Ruth often likes to talk about digging in the dirt, right? When you're trying to like feel those feelings, we have to get a little bit dirty. We have to really dig deep, figure out what's actually going on, figure out how we're actually feeling, and then allow ourselves to feel those feelings and allow ourselves to have that emotional release of those feelings. And sometimes, like I said, crying is like an emotional release. Exercise can be a huge emotional release. Laughter can be a huge emotional release. And I believe that God has given us these forms of like release of emotions that are healthy for us, right? It's healthy to cry sometimes. It's healthy to laugh. Laughter is the best medicine, right? We always hear that. It's healthy to exercise. So God has given us these healthy forms of emotional release, but many of us are just using food, which is not the healthy way to deal with our emotions, to stuff it all down. So my second strategy is to actually feel your feelings. And, this isn't something you're going to do once and then it's over. We have feelings all day, every day. God has made us as emotional human beings. And so I believe he has, given us these ways to release emotions in healthy ways. And I believe that, he wants us to actually feel how we're feeling. Emotions are not wrong. Emotions are not sinful. Sometimes the behaviors that we go to because of our feelings can be sinful, but it's not sinful to feel sad. It's not sinful or wrong to feel angry. The behavior that we take from that emotion could be sinful, right? But that's why I believe God gave us these beautiful emotional releases so that we can actually feel and process our feelings. So that's the second strategy. Okay, so the first one is to actually bring it before God, write it down. The second one is to actually feel it, right? And to use those expressions of emotional release that God's given us. The third strategy that I want to share with you to stop emotional eating today is to stop with the all or nothing thinking. And that looks a little bit like this. So you're feeling stressed or anxious or some big feeling, and then you've headed to the junk food. And then you're like, well, I guess I screwed it all up. Might as well just ditch all my good decisions, ditch all my good habits that I've been working on creating, and just dive right into this huge emotional eating binge, right? We forget that it's about progress, not perfection. And so then we have this digital mindset where we're like, well, screwed it all up, so I'm just going to keep going, right? I already had the chocolate. Now I'm going to have a milkshake and the fries and I'm just going to go to town. Right? So we have to learn how to stop that emotional eating, that all or nothing thinking, because that's just keeping us in an emotional eating spiral. Because here's what happens. You're already feeling whatever you're feeling. So you head to the food, and then that food makes you feel better for like this much time. And then you start to feel guilt and shame because you've gone and done all this emotional eating that you're trying not to do that. You're trying to be healthy. You're trying to make good decisions. So then the guilt and shame cycle starts, which is another emotional eating spiral that many women find themselves in. And then you just keep going and it keeps going. And it's like, I often talk about like, you're on the wagon, you're on doing good. And then you fall off the wagon. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, the wagon is like 10 miles down the road ahead of you. And you're like sitting back in the dirt watching it go. Well, it's a whole heck of a lot easier to pull yourself back up on the wagon when you're like hanging on for dear life. The sooner you can pull yourself back up and start making good decisions, the easier it is to continue making good decisions. Where if you're sitting in the dirt 10 miles back, you've got a longer way to go to get back up on the wagon. But it is possible, and I'm here to tell you that. So stop with that all or nothing thinking. If you've already, found yourself eating what you've been trying not to eat, it's okay. Let it go. Make the next decision count. Don't get stuck in the all or nothing thinking with the emotional eating and that spiral. So those are the 3 points I've got for you today. Bring it before God, write it down, learn how to actually feel your feelings, not feed them, not stuff them down with food. And then thirdly, stop with that all or nothing thinking and just recognize that it's about progress. And if you've fallen off the wagon, it's okay. You can get back up, you can carry on, you can keep going. This is not a journey of perfection. It's a journey of progress. It's a journey of continually learning, of continually surrendering and letting yourself be vulnerable. And, letting yourself be vulnerable to yourself and recognizing that it's okay that you fell down and you can still get back up, and letting yourself surrender and be vulnerable to God, because he knows all the things that are going on in your head. He knows all the feelings that you're having. And so just a couple really practical things that you can do also if you're like in the moment and you're feeling this like intense temptation and pressure to eat, to go to the food. There's some really quick, simple things you can do, like chew on a piece of gum. Like some people like to suck on ice cubes. Go brush your teeth. Get yourself out of the house. Go for a drive, go for a walk, get away from the food. Okay. And another really simple thing that you can do to kind of just like flip the switch in your head is to actually flip a light switch. Okay. Sometimes those like weird things, they're called pattern interrupts. They can help us just like interrupt the thought, and we can flip it and we can carry on and let the temptation go, because the Bible tells us that there is a way out of every temptation. We just have to be willing to sometimes do the hard things to get away from the temptation, right? And so I really just want to encourage you with all of this big, heavy topic today that it is possible. And you know what? God has made a way for each and every one of us. It's possible. This journey of losing weight, this journey of reclaiming our health is possible, but we have to be willing to do the hard things, right? And if you think about temptation, think about Joseph and Potiphar's wife, right? I'm sure it was not easy for Joseph to like drop his coat and run away. That was difficult, but there was a way out of the temptation. Did Joseph want to stay? Probably. He was human. He had fleshly desires, but there was a way out of the temptation and he took it. And I want to encourage you that there is a way out of the temptation for you today. There is a way out of this emotional eating cycle. And sometimes we need to go get professional help with it. And that is okay. There's no shame in that, but there is a way out. And so pray and ask God to show you the way out of the temptation, and he will provide. So I just want to share with you one last thing. And that is that if you are looking to lose weight and you're struggling with like where to even start, because the amount of information out there is so overwhelming. If you're struggling with emotional eating, sometimes having a plan and a way to make decisions is so helpful. And that's why Ruth and I created our Should I Eat That guide. It's a 5-step decision-making guide for weight loss. And we called it Should I Eat That? Because when we find ourselves at the junk food cupboard or looking for the next thing to eat, we've got to start asking ourselves, should I eat that? And so we've created this 5-step decision-making guide to help you logically think through the process, which can sometimes help to take the emotional charge out of it, right? When we can think about it from a logical standpoint. And so there's 5 steps to it. You can grab your free copy of the download at shouldiEatThat.com. We will make sure to put the link in the description. Go grab your free copy. It's what I've been using to lose the weight after my second pregnancy. And I know that if you start asking yourself those 5 questions every time, that it will help you as well. So thank you for being here. Please interact. We would just love to hear from you, love to hear your thoughts, love to hear what resonated with you the most. And until next time, make sure that you are treating your body like a temple, not a trash can.